Hi everyone, welcome back. So I'm in LA right now doing a plastic surgery rotation and I got off early, so I just wanted to drop by and tell you thank you for 5,000 subscribers. You guys are amazing. And I also wanted to answer some questions that I've been getting a lot lately, like what classes you should take to get into med school, and I thought that I would share my story and it will give you an idea of which roads that you can take. Stick towards the end and I will give you some tips on what I think will give you an advantage while applying to med school. I wanted to bring you guys back to the beginning and tell you a little bit about my backstory so you guys get a sense of like if you guys can relate to my story or not. Basically, I grew up in a household with my dad being a computer engineer and my mom does hair. So nowhere in my family was there any aspect of medicine. So growing up, the only thing I knew was I had to go to college. It wasn't a choice, it was you had to go to college in the Asian culture. So in high school, my mom was she was really strict. So I didn't really get to do any extracurricular activities. I didn't get to go to school dances. I basically couldn't do anything after school. I would go to school and go home and get good grades. And that was it. Like, she was one of those people who had such a tight leash on you that you could barely breathe, but you're still breathing, so you're still alive. So I didn't do anything extra really in high school. And then when it came time to apply to college, I had to pick a major. And the only class that I was interested in high school was this physiology class. And I thought, hey, I should go into medicine, like some route, either go into pharm or nursing or be a doctor. Well, actually my first thought was either go into being a doctor or a pharmacist. So I applied to college with biochemistry or the biochem major, and I got into UC San Diego. And honestly, my first year at UC San Diego, I did not do anything besides prerequisites. I was in Revelle College and I just did prereqs for Revelle the first year. And remember that I was like very trapped when I was at home, and this was the first time where I was on my own. I was able to breathe. I was able to stay out till 2 a.m. and not die and look up at the sky and see the stars. So I was just enjoying life the first year of college. Came second year, I think it wasn't until end of second year where I thought to myself, fuck, Jenny, what the hell are you doing with your life? You need to figure out if you really want to pursue medicine, if you want to be pre-med. And that's when I joined this pre-medical fraternity called Phi Delta Epsilon. And from there, I was surrounded by a lot more pre-meds, and I got the gist of the certain things that I had to do. And I think it was that point where I was just like, okay, I want to do this. I want to be pre-med. I'm dedicated to being pre-med, and I want to go to medical school. At that time, my application wasn't strong at all. I haven't done anything medical related. Some things that I did after Phi Delta Epsilon, and they hooked me up with a lot of this stuff, was getting a lab job at the histology core, where my PI was basically she was the head director of UC San Diego Medical School. And then after that, I got hooked up with Clinical Career Extenders, which is like a volunteer thing where you do 4 hours each week. And I worked in the ICU, labor and delivery, and med surg, which is just cleaning up poop. What else did I do? And then I also ended up shadowing a physician, a DO, who practiced OMT. I think this is where I truly fell in love with family practice and primary care. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is my calling, and this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. And I was so excited. And I was like to get that validation from doctors as well, like them telling me, oh, you're meant to be here, felt really good. And it just pushed me forward to pursuing that field. I also went on mission trips to Mexico, to Vietnam, just doing clinical work to third world countries. And I think that was the bulk of my application and CV. All that time that I took, I didn't feel that I was a good enough candidate to apply my third year because application process takes a whole year. If I wanted to get into medical school right after my fourth year, I would have had to apply my third year. And so I actually took a year off, a gap year, to apply and just build my resume and stuff like that. And in that gap year, I still worked at the histology corps. I still volunteered at the hospital. I bartended, I catered, just basically to pay rent. But it was an awesome time, and I went on interviews, and luckily I got in my first year. So yeah, and then I started in medical school by the time I was, I think, 24. Basically, what I want people to take away from this is that you don't have to know right away that this is what you wanted to do. I was debating between PA and doctor when I was working on basically my whole application, and ultimately I chose to become a doctor. I don't feel like there's any direct path where it's just like you need to do this. You know, I have people in my class who have become nurses and then doctors, PAs and then doctors. There's many different routes, and you don't necessarily have to have a bachelor's in science as long as you take all your bio prerequisite courses to go to med school. So I just wanted you guys to know that everybody can have their own path and not everybody's path is similar. So some things that I think will set you apart in your application process to get you into med school. Number one, you have to understand that physicians or people at administrations see hundreds of thousands and even maybe millions of applications that come through the office. And so you want your application to stand out. You want there to be that something that sets you apart from everyone else. For me, that was the mission trips. I went to Vietnam twice, and we opened up clinics there and helped over 1,000 people within the 2 to 3 weeks that we were there. I also was a dance minor, and I know one of my friends who was a religion major but also pre-med. So that's what I mean, like something that sparks their interest and they're like, oh, this person's different, like we should interview them, and that's where you shine. Because understand that at this point everyone has good grades and everyone has a good MCAT score, so you need to do something that will set you apart. Tip number 2, have really good letters of recommendation. It's basically a professional vouching for you. It's basically someone higher up's word, lifting you up. And my biggest advice for getting letters of recommendation in a big college is going to office hours the first week or week 0 before classes even start. Because who goes to office hours first week? No one, right? And so if you go, and if you consistently go and you have good questions, then the doctor will remember you, and he or she is more willing to write you a letter of recommendation. Or do what I did and shadow a doctor. Tip number 3, I really think that people should be self-proficient. And it's really hard when you depend. It's nice to learn from other people, but you have to know how to research and be self-motivated on your own. Do you know what I mean? Because in med school, it's a lot of self-learning and self-motivation and pushing yourself to do things that you thought you never could do or never would do. And if you can't do that now, I feel like you would really struggle in med school. So just think positive, one step at a time, and motivate yourself to do it. Step number 4, I think it's also not what you know, but who you know. Because a lot of the times when you go into interviews, actually the people that you meet, like the students that you meet at the school, have a say on who gets in. So I would suggest during your interview, try to get housing with one of the students. So when I interviewed, I stayed with a student host, and she liked me, all her friends liked me. So they actually wrote letters to the administration on my behalf. And my last tip is to smile. You don't even know how much of a difference it makes, because when you're interviewing, the people that interview you are basically going to be your colleagues in the future, or maybe you're going to even take care of them in the future, and they want someone who they get along with, who they're going to spend a lot of their time with, who they're going to be teaching. And if they don't like you, sure, you can have an amazing resume, amazing scores, amazing grades, be the best of the best, but if your personality sucks and if no one wants to be around you, then you're gonna have a hard time getting into medical school. Those are my tips. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'm really good at replying to all your questions and comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. So let's recap. Tip number 1, if you're going into a night rotation or a night oh my gosh, why am I saying this? Okay.